regional seas program. So, Dr. Badran.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay, so this is PERSGA, the Regional Organization for the Conservation of Environment of the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. This is the long name of this short, abbreviation of PERSGA. Our geographic setting, as you see, is in this hot, arid, dry, no rivers, very low precipitation area. Our countries are Djibouti, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Of course, we are based in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and our legal framework is the Jeddah Convention that was signed between the... Do you hear me? Do I need that?
Translation.
Oh, okay, sorry, طيب. So I have to stay here.
No, if you want to remove.
Okay,
you
طيب.
can use this.
Okay. So yeah, the Jeddah Convention has joined, these Arab countries to protect the environment of the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Why do we need to care about this ecosystem, the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden? Actually, it's a highly diverse, very high biodiversity and very clean, actually, ecosystem. What's happening here? Okay. Okay, yeah. So it's a very highly diverse ecosystem. This is why it's worth actually taking care of. About 15% of the species in the ecosystem are endemic, so they exist only in this ecosystem. Outside proportion of this ecosystem is still pristine, and so it is one of the sort of the world cleanest seas. Besides actually its value as a valuable biodiversity ecosystem, it's also a very valuable income resource for the communities that live on it. Actually, so it provides fishing, tourism, aquaculture, and all these sort of marine resources for human being use. These are the sort of the activities of PERSGA program, which I will not go through, but I will stop at one of them actually, that Birgui has mentioned, which is pollution from land-based activities. This is one of the main components of PERSGA activities, where we are concerned about pollution to the marine environment that comes from land. This is mainly or basically wastewater, but it's not only wastewater. There is land-based sources pollution that comes from on air also. That's persistent organic pollutants, and of course there's, as we all know, the marine litter. So these are the main components that we deal with in the land-based activities of PERSGA. So now we come to the guidelines. In this small supported project with UNEP, we have drafted, regional guidelines for wastewater management. We are still in a draft stage. The draft has been distributed to countries so that we get remarks from them, and once we get the remarks, the guidelines will be finalized and printed. What is the objective of having these guidelines? Actually, it's the protection of coastal and marine environment from untreated or partially treated wastewater. Also, another objective of the guidelines is to encourage wastewater treatment and reuse. A third objective is to introduce simple and effective, also suitable for the location, for the probably sometimes the small communities that live in some remote areas on that ecosystem that we care about. Management policy aspects and capacity building aspects that we sort of discussed or cared about in these guidelines include wastewater and treated water standards. So far, in most of the countries in our region, actually, we do not have very well identified standards for wastewater that may come in a treatment system or the standards of the treated water that comes out of the system. So we need to agree on that, and we need to identify that in some kind of guidelines that we all agree on and follow as a region. So this is one component that is discussed in the guidelines. Another component that's discussed in the guidelines is the scarcity of water resources and reuse identification need for, and the need for reuse. When we talk about reusing treated water, actually, we need to identify in that spot, actually, what is the purpose of the reuse. So, for example, we will not treat the water that we will reuse for plantation the same way that we will reuse for enriching the groundwater, or that water that will go to the sea, or of course, there is no river, so there is no water that will go in rivers, but the reuse itself will determine the type of treatment that we target. Management of the wastewater water zone shed. Actually, this is the area that surrounds the ecosystem that we are talking about. Actually, we are talking about a large marine ecosystem that's, of course, surrounded by investment, by industry. So we need to care about the watershed zone around this ecosystem, because it's not only water that comes directly to the surface of that system that may affect, but also water that may seep underground or may also be affecting the system, and this is one point that is also discussed. Inventory of industries and pollution sources is needed. Definitely, when we talk about managing a marine ecosystem and protecting that marine ecosystem from land-based sources, we need to have at least an idea of what is going on, what industries are there, and what sources of pollution are going or are potentially may potentially go into that system. Capacity building, we definitely need to care about capacity building, and this is discussed, in some detail in the guidelines, because, and we need capacity building at all levels, actually, at managers levels, at operators levels, at a sort of monitoring level. You can have the best systems in the world, but with poor training and with poor operators, your system will be probably useless, or it will not at least give the efficiency that you bought it for, that you spend the money for. You will not get that efficiency. You will waste your money if you do not train your operators well enough to use the system that you provide. Some of the technical aspects and process selection that are discussed in the guidelines, that plans should be with flexible operational choices and high turn-down ratios. So, in small communities, we do not want to go for huge plants that will be used only partially. So we will go, or we would go, or the guidelines advise that we would go for something that can be built by compartments, something that we can start small and develop as the community develops. We do not want to have huge plants for small communities, or for some parts of that plant would not be in use. Systems with less maintenance requirements and preferred, the majority of the equipment should be possible to maintain and prepare in the country. We would like to have systems that we can maintain and we can prepare. Most likely we will go and buy the system, but we will not be able to run the system if we keep spending also on maintenance and repair. If quite often you would find systems, very sophisticated systems, that lots of money have been spent on are not working, simply because the people using them, or people have spent money to buy those systems, are not able to maintain it. So we would like to stress this in our guidelines, that we would like to go for systems that we can maintain. Cost of energy and chemicals. Also, the systems that we use, we need to be careful about the cost of energy and chemicals in the operation. So when we go for the system, it's not only the initial cost. The operational cost is also important. So the guidelines talk about this and emphasize that when you go for a system, do not just think of the money that you have in pocket for the initial cost. No, it's not only that. You will have money going continuously for the operation. So think quite very well for the operational cost. Discharge of effluent and sludge disposal. Effluent discharge. Actually, quite often, actually, when you treat water, we need the water. We know that we are in a very, very poor water area, and we need it. But quite often, even the best treated area goes to the sea. We do not have rivers, so that water may go to the river, but mostly water will go to the sea, and then we need to think of solutions to that problem, actually. So when we think of treatment, when we think of producing treated water, we need to think of where and how to use that treated water. So when we think, even when we start planning for establishing wastewater networks, we need also to start thinking of treated water or regenerated water networks. Effluent disinfection. So there are these, these are the choices. There is this chlorination, there is the ozone, and there is, of course, the UV and maturation ponds. It's very well known, or it's not that well known, but chlorination might be not that expensive, but it's known that chlorination with the organic matter remaining in wastewater may result in some harmful or toxic organic material. This needs to be considered and taken care of. UV and ozone might be expensive, so not all countries might be able to go for such systems. Maturation bonds, actually, it depends on the availability and price of land. So all these choices need to be considered when you plan, or when we or the guidelines advise that all these need to be considered when we are planning our treatment systems. Sludge disposal, actually, we still use the word sludge disposal. We hope that we will reach a stage where we can say sludge use, not disposal. Still, sludge disposal is a problem. We, in the Arab world, we used to think that we have lots of deserts. Sludge is not a problem. We can throw the sludge anywhere, but because, it can be, useful for our desert. But, now we know that deserts are not dead, habitats. They are not dead ecological systems. Deserts are life systems. So, and throwing sludge in the deserts is not the ideal solution. And nowadays, actually, there are technologies where the sludge can be used. And we would like to reach, to a stage where we do not use the word sludge disposal, but rather use the word sludge use. Wastewater treatment performance goals. Okay. So when we are thinking of disposing this water, actually, we need to think of our performance, how well or how up to our designs we are working, so that we can really fulfill the targets of our treatment system, that we are producing the water that we really need for the purpose that we have selected at the very beginning when we started our plan. Objectives of PERSGA project in the Global Waste Water Initiative. So this is what Børge started, the initiative. We have this smaller project. What were the objectives of our program and this partnership? Actually, the main objective of this agreement is to demonstrate and provide appropriate tools for protection of the coastal communities and the coastal and marine environment in PERSGA region from adverse effects associated with wastewater discharge. So, the objective of the initiative itself, or our going into the global partnership, is the same objective, actually, of developing the guidelines. Also, we would like to have effective exploitation of the scarce freshwater resources through wastewater treatment and minimizing losses of fresh and waste water. So this is why we joined, and this is why UNEP and the global partner, the global initiative, accepted us in this program. What are the activities through which we are trying to achieve these objectives? We would like to start with some demonstration of effective treated wastewater reuse in a selected city in the region, and adoption of the regional guidelines. Actually, when I wrote this sentence, I had in mind Aqaba in Jordan. In Aqaba, they have a very well-established example of a successful story of treated wastewater. Wastewater in Aqaba is now as valuable as fresh water. They have networks. It is used in industry. It is used in landscaping, and it is used also for as tourist attraction actually in some bird observatory system. So Aqaba is a good city in our region that we would like to use or to sort of showcase to other cities that probably we would be able to do something similar to what is done in Aqaba. But still, actually, although Aqaba has gone very, well ahead, still sludge is not that much, solved as a problem. We will still need to learn about solving sludge problems and learn from each other, also learn from outside how to manage sludge and as I said before, reach to the world using sludge rather than disposing of sludge. The program also will provide technical assistance for introduction of effective wastewater treatment plants and networks. In some parts of the region, actually, this is very much needed. We will need to go with experts to go to the spots and provide this technical assistance so that people would be able to know or establish the systems that they need. We would like also to, when we did our assessment, actually, in many countries, actually, there were no capabilities of doing the analysis, actually. Some countries did have wastewater treatment plants, but there were no analysis of the incoming water or the outgoing water. So we would like also through this program to build capacity in these countries to be able to do the analysis of wastewater and incorporate that in their monitoring programs. Evaluation, this is of course, like any project, you will have to do your continuous evaluation and revision and reporting. With this, actually, if you allow me, to present this 3 minutes movie that is produced by the Global Initiative, UNEP. It's a small movie that would be of interest to us here to see. Inshallah, it will work. يشتغل.
Chesapeake Bay, standing at a beach that's been closed because the bacteria level is considered unsafe for swimming. Even here, just 50 kilometers from Washington, D.C., wastewater is a problem. In developing countries, where more than 80% of all wastewater is discharged directly into waterways, it's more than a problem. It's a crisis. We produce wastewater every day when we flush the toilet, take a shower, or wash our dishes. This wastewater typically includes human waste, soaps, solvents, pharmaceuticals, and other chemicals that pollute the water. Industries, hospitals, and farms also generate wastewater, which can contain harmful substances like germs, pesticides, heavy metals, and even radioactive materials. Ideally, wastewater should end up at a treatment plant before it's discharged into water bodies. However, this is often not the case because the infrastructure is either inadequate or non-existent. We've come to rely on natural water bodies and ultimately the ocean as the world's biggest wastewater treatment plant. This is most evident in coastal towns and cities where infrastructure can't keep up with population growth and untreated wastewater flows directly into the ocean. Untreated wastewater is causing numerous problems globally. Most obvious is its threat to human health. 1.8 million children under 5 die each year due to water-related diseases. On top of that, it's destroying aquatic environments, which provide countless natural benefits, as well as goods and services worth trillions of dollars. Wastewater contributes to dead zones, water environments that are almost completely void of life. It contaminates beaches and threatens tourism. And it generates greenhouse gases that cause climate change. And this is the ultimate irony. Wastewater is actually a valuable resource, and we're just flushing it away and harming the environment in the process. When properly managed, wastewater can provide solutions to more than one problem. It can be used in agriculture, reducing the need for increasingly scarce fresh water and expensive chemical fertilizers. Wastewater sludge can even be used to manufacture construction materials and generate biogas and biofuels, providing opportunities for green employment and social well-being. So keep this in mind. The ocean is not a free wastewater treatment plant. Preventing untreated wastewater from entering the environment is easier and cheaper than dealing with the consequences of pollution. How can we do this? By increasing our wastewater treatment capacity, protecting and building green infrastructure to better manage stormwater runoff, changing our household, workplace, and industry practices to reduce the amount and toxicity of wastewater, and of course safely reusing wastewater rather than flushing it away. If we manage our wastewater effectively, we can turn a harmful pollutant into a valuable resource.
And thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Lamizana from UN Environment Program, Dr. Badr from Persian. Yes, Persian. Yes. In fact, wastewater management is a crucial issue especially in the Arab region. Yes, and I believe your presentation raised a lot of issues about Global Wastewater Initiative, then the guidelines for wastewater management. Then you get something about policies, how we can integrate wastewater into the national policies to encourage appropriate technology, encourage knowledge sharing and lessons learned, capacity development, and partnership at a regional level. So thank you for your presentation. We'll open the floor for discussion after we have the second presentation with us today. We have Dr. Muhammad Al-Momani about the nuclear techniques in water resources assessment and management in Jordan. Dr. Muhammad from the Ministry of Water Resources, Water and Irrigation in Jordan. Yes? Please, Dr. Muhammad.